move straight to public participation, and we have two items under that heading today. The first one is the Health Precinct Advisory Council, and I've invited them to come to the council meeting today. They presented at the Urban Development Strategy Implementation Committee meeting just recently, and I think that there is a sense, certainly that I have, that the Health Precinct is the unsung hero of the renewed Christchurch, and we'd really like to invite them to come forward and make a presentation about the work that's going on there. Thank you.
Good morning. My name's Ian Town and I'm the chairman of the...
Can you switch your microphones on?
Yes.
Yeah, that's cool. That's great.
Will that still be sufficient, do you think?
It should be.
Yes,
if you...
good. Colleagues, please join me. So thank you firstly, Mayor Dalzell, for the invitation, and it was, as you record, recently that presentation we gave at which one or two of your colleagues were present, and we also talked about this project last year with the then Council as part of this awareness campaign that you've hinted at, spreading the word about what this project entails. I'm delighted to have a number of our council members present. Stella Ward, who's the Executive Director of Allied Health at the Canterbury District Health Board and Lead for Innovation. We have Amber Clark from Martha Popuri, who provides us with excellent advice and support. Sue Rogers is our Executive Officer, and Baden Newitt, who you'll know is the representative of DPMC in regard to this project. So that's great that they were able to join us this morning. Would you move the slides on, Sue? So the council is made up of the leading health and education institutions in the city, and as a result of the earthquakes and what followed, we've come together to innovate and think of different ways of delivering healthcare, education and training in this very special part of the city. Along Oxford Terrace. So we have, as I've mentioned, the Canterbury District Health Board. We have the University of Canterbury represented by Gail Gillan, Professor Gail Gillan. ARA Institute of Canterbury represented by Kay Giles, my apologies. University of Otago represented by the Dean, Professor David Murdoch, and Amber, who's been introduced. So we're working together, we meet monthly, and we've been giving a lot of thought to how the relationships that we've developed over the last few years can lead to innovation and changes in the way we work together as institutions, but also in partnership with the city. So our vision up here is developed in 2014. I think it's as relevant today as it was then. We want to work as a network, a hub and a spoke, so we'll be reaching out to other colleagues at the other DHB institutions and partner organisations. And we're interested in building our reputation here in the city for world-class healthcare based on research and innovation. There's a big education component, which I'll refer to in a moment. And then increasingly too, we're starting to think about the economic recovery of the city and our region and how this project can perhaps inform that in the future. The overarching goal, which you share as a council, is to improve community well-being in the long term and have a fantastic, healthy and safe city. So this is the role of the council. We're a governance group. As I say, we meet monthly. We were established during the time of Sarah, but our organisation will continue on into the future to provide this leadership and governance and to harness that drive and passion that each of them demonstrate for their role in the city. So our role is to champion excellence and think about that healthier future for the city and the region. So if we have the next slide, Sue. So in 2014, a master plan was developed. It was developed in conjunction with colleagues in Sydney, a colleague of mine who'd been involved in hospital complex development. And this plan is actually being followed, although it was never formally adopted by the Crown. As you'll see as I show you the up-to-date version, just go back, sorry. The idea is that it is a river-facing precinct and populated by a variety of facilities, starting on the left-hand side of your screen under the sign, of course, with the new acute services building with the Canterbury District Health Board. On that triangle site, the new outpatients, which is under construction now, and then a series of buildings that would form a built environment which would enable and encourage collaboration in the research and teaching agenda. So thank you, Sue. There. The next slide shows our key strategic goals, and I've got a copy of that plan on the table in front of you for each of you to study. In this short presentation, there isn't time to go into them in great detail, but I'll just touch on one or two aspects. As you've implied, Mayor Dalzell, this is a project that's not well known, so we hope this presentation and others that follow will enable people to understand and engage with our work. The emergence of buildings once their foundations of completion will also, I think, help with the visibility of the precinct, as we can see, obviously, the hospital and outpatients coming together. Research and excellence, this is one of the best research-informed health systems in Australasia here in Christchurch. That's not new, and it's a fantastic asset that we have here in the city, and we continue to rely heavily on that to inform excellent healthcare in primary and secondary care. In the future, we're probably going to be short of health professionals. If you've seen the statistics, the ageing population will create massive demands for the healthcare system, and particularly its workforce. So we want to be focused on developing innovative models of health workforce roles so that we can all be looked after in the future. And that may involve new projects that we'll be working with in terms of developing new roles for people who may be working in health. And then, of course, once you're a medical practitioner or a registered health professional, you need to undertake ongoing training throughout your career. Clinical simulation is the new happening thing in terms of professional education, both from an undergraduate but in a postgraduate. Simulated environments, be it a ward or an operating theatre, the use of robotics and augmented reality, make it possible for us to train health professionals in a variety of innovative ways. Clinical trials have been a mainstay of the health research campus here in the city for 30 or 40 years, and those trials bring much needed new medications, new approaches to treating patients, and economic growth for the region, so we'll be continuing with that. And then the District Health Board is one of New Zealand's leading organisations in terms of developing innovation, the paperless hospital, digital advancements and shared patient records with its commercial partners such as Orion Healthcare. So those are the strategic areas that we're working on. In terms of the built environment, I have emphasised, Mayor, previously that we're not involved with car parking, and I reiterate that this morning. We have very ambitious plans for that river-facing precinct. On the left, the blue triangle there is the outpatients, and then as we move along, a number of buildings are being developed. Of course, the Canterbury District Health Board itself has already moved into premises within the precinct, and on the far right is the currently vacant site at 36 Oxford Terrace, which is currently being managed by Atakaro as it looks to find partners for capital development on that site. So although the built environment is important, the hospital shown here, and I think the next slide shows the outpatients department building being developed. It's taken a little while to load into the memory of the computer, I suspect. That's it there. And then the next one, Sue, if you wouldn't mind. The Health Research and Education facility is going to be on the corner of Antigua and Tuam Street, and you can see the piles being driven into the ground at the moment. That building will be, I think, a breathtaking example of how professionals can work together. The lead tenants, the Canterbury District Health Board and ARA, together with the University of Canterbury, will be working in that building on their training, education and research mission. But they're not all having separate floors, they're going to be working collaboratively together right up and down that building, providing a wonderful environment for collegial discussions, planning, training and research. As much as it's about the buildings, it's also about the people. This is a young researcher from the University of Canterbury working on the development of a colour CT scanner, which was a major project funded here in partnership with the universities and the DHB. I think the next slide, if I've got it right, will show Professor, I've just forgotten his name now. Professor Butler, of course, who was probably the inventor of the black and white CT scanner. So for him to be involved in this story is very exciting. The whole of the precinct will be added to by the movement of the nursing and other health-related programs from ARA, bringing thousands of extra students into the region once that building is commissioned in 2018. Stella Ward is shown here. Behind her, fascinatingly, are some of the major digital projects that are underway within the wider Canterbury DHB, and that's all present at the Design Lab, which I think some of you will have had the opportunity to visit. Our partnership with Mata Popuri is very special to us, and we've had engagement with colleagues at Tuahiwi and regular input, of course, from Aloha. So thank you for making time to listen to us. We have on your desks a storybook, if you like, which I think the Mayor has been studying closely. And that storybook contains some of the backstory around why we're doing what we're doing, a little bit about the people who are involved, and the aspirations of the institutions collectively. So we'll be continuing to talk with a variety of agencies over the next few months. And we look forward to working in partnership with you, councillors, but also council staff, as we breathe life into this project. So thank you very much, and we look forward to answering any questions, which my colleagues, I'm sure, will be able to help with. Thank you.
Thought that you were going to take the full 10 minutes and you haven't, so there's a couple of minutes for questions. And I do recommend that people read this, that this is what kind of smoked my tyres when I listened to the presentation. Brad.
Thanks, Ian. Fantastic stuff. I mean, this is exactly what we need for the city. My question is around funding. So given that the CDHB is continually underfunded, what's the funding relationship here for this organisation?
The council, in terms of funding, is quite small. In terms of it's just a small administration that allows us to continue to fund the appropriate streams of work for the channel. Each of the pillars will need specific business cases to stack up, and certainly for CDHB to participate in the HREF building, an appropriate business case was signed off, and we are committed to a 30-year time in the precinct, working with ARA and UC and other partners in that collaboration. So each component will work through, and I guess the opportunity to attract industry will also help leverage the ability to think about how we partner with industry to fund some of the work that we're trying to do. And an example of that is the work that we've been doing with Orion Health, Hewlett Packard Enterprise and GE Healthcare, that are particularly interested in how we work and thinking about and have contributed to significant funding to support what it is that we're doing.
And so that investment attraction comes directly into your group, as opposed to the individual people? The
governance of the projects comes through, and each of the individual projects needs to stand up on its own. But the governance group provides that leadership in terms of prioritisation.
Cool. Right.
Phil?
Thank you for the presentation. It's great having seen it twice now too. Ian, I think you particularly mentioned about the goal being improving community wellbeing, and you'll be aware that our council work in that area in regard to strengthening communities, but also government have given us some funding recently for that too. So what ways do you think, besides the DHB working collaboratively, you might be able to work with us around that whole area?
Yes, well, we'd be delighted to engage directly on that topic. Our major strength is that this is where health professionals are trained, they develop their values and their skills, and where the research-informed teaching and learning leads to outstanding healthcare. So we're kind of at that end of the spectrum on one hand, but also we're very keen, like you, to be working alongside primary care more comprehensively in the future, and that's something we're starting to discuss right now for this year as a strategic alliance perhaps with primary care. So because we're a governance group, obviously, and we have a small budget, as Stella has pointed out, we're not delivering services, but we're providing leadership and context for others to lift their game and to deliver excellence.
Thanks, Ian.
And I'd add the health and all policy partnership that we do have with council provides an opportunity for each of the pillars of our strategic plan to reflect that.
Yep. Thank you. And we're aware of our policies on that, Stella, so thank you.
It's brilliant. Look, thank you very much. And I know it's just a short window for a presentation, but it was live streamed, and because you've presented at the council meeting, which means that there will be a link online, which will enable you to, link to that. And I know that councillors are already putting it on their Facebook pages, so hopefully that will help to increase, sort of public awareness. But I think it's really important that people understand that this is the future of Christchurch, and hidden away in this thing called the health precinct is really the answer to some of the global problems that the world will be seeking answers for. So congratulations, and thank you very much for agreeing to come. Now, our next presentation is somewhat different from the one that we've just had, and I'd like to invite Marcus Brandt, who's here from the United States, Mark Belton and Andy Buchanan. Mark Belton will be well known to many around the table, and Andy Buchanan, who's from the engineering school at Canterbury University, one of the in the top 3% in the world. Just put in a plug for Canterbury University in that regard. And again, this is not an area that we have any particular decision making over or influence, but it was just too good a chance with Marcus here in Christchurch not to have, again, a public presentation of an idea that I think will capture people's imagination. Over to you, Marcus.
No, Mark, you introduce.
Well, I'll let these
Or Mark.
guys
Okay, Mark. Mark will introduce.
Okay, very good introduction, Leanne. Marcus is a member of the Timber Framers Guild from North America, but it's actually an international organisation, and that organisation has got behind this whole proposal and is offering to do the job through the local timber engineering expert, Andy Buchanan, because you need a registered New Zealand engineer to lead. It's an extraordinary proposal which, if it gets across the line, would engage the people in Christchurch positively about the recovery of the cathedral and greatly aid fundraising as well. And Marcus is going to demonstrate his ingenious model. He's the brilliant mind and designer behind it. But as I said, there's this very powerful professional organisation, very wealthy organisation, and I know that the pro bono contributions from that organisation and a New Zealand company, Blakely Pacific New Zealand Limited, who've offered to provide all the timber at no cost. Those pro bono contributions are hugely valuable, and they illustrate the spirit that would be behind restoration of the cathedral if we can get it underway. Our hope is that this would lead the restoration.
Thanks, Mark. I'll just say a couple of words. I'm Andy Buchanan. A lot of you know me. I'm just retired Professor of Civil Engineering at the university, and my passion is timber buildings. I've been a consulting engineer in Christchurch, and I still am. Mark introduced me to Marcus.
Andy, could you go behind the desk, because we need to pick up your voice for the recording, otherwise...
Is that any better?
Yeah.
So, thanks, Leanne. All I want to say is that I'm the engineer behind this, but I'm just providing the technical engineering support. But last year I had the opportunity of going to the United States, and I visited Marcus, and he took me to church steeples like this all over, well, Philadelphia and Pennsylvania, and I was captivated, and I'd just like to hand over to Marcus to tell us his vision.
Press. Front page of the press yesterday. A time to heal. Well, I've been thinking this for 6 years. 6 years ago yesterday, 6 years ago yesterday, in the United States, I was pulling my pants on and turned the TV on, and I saw the news from Christchurch. And the devastation. There was a helicopter shot flying over the cathedral with the spire snapped off, and you could look right down the tube of the stump of the bell tower. And that was the start of an odyssey that's led up to this point and hopefully beyond. In an instant, I realized that there was a traditional form of steeple building that's time-proven, safe, engages the community, that could repair and replace that spire and do it in such a way that it would engage the people of Christchurch, engage the people of the world, and do so in a really positive, uplifting manner. Excuse me. I come from a part of the world where we have a lot of our Amish neighbors, and I don't know if you know about the Amish sect. They don't drive cars, they horse and buggy, and when somebody's barn burns down, well, everybody pitches in to fix it. As a young man, I was invited to one of these Amish barn raisings. They assigned a minder for me, an older gentleman with a long white beard. Amos and I worked together shoulder to shoulder all day long. By lunchtime, we had the frame up. By dinner time, the roof and the siding, the doors were on. They were loading hay in the barn, and the cows were going in to be milked. And I turned to Amos and I said, I think it's wonderful that your community builds these big, strong barns. He laughed and he laughed and he laughed. He said, son, you got it backwards. He said, it's the barns that build a community. And it's true. Some of the most spiritual events of my life, most uplifting events of my life, is when we've been pulled together. We built 140-foot long, what's that in meters? I don't know. Covered bridge, wooden covered bridge in Canada, 5 days, 500 guys, start to finish, and it was like a celebration the whole time. That's what I'd like to bring to Christchurch, and that's what this is all about.
Should we just bring it here so you can point to it?
Yes, I think I can do that. Go ahead, Amy.
Tell us where it needs to be on the camera. Where does it need to be
That way,
on
if you
the
stand on
camera?
this side, you can be
All right.
here and you can listen.
Can everybody see?
We're just going to make sure that we can get it on the camera so we
All
don't
right,
miss
can
you.
you get that on the camera?
It's all good? Yep, good.
All right, thanks. As you can all see, I've been thinking about this entirely too much. You ask my wife, she'll tell you. The idea is to build it as a telescope, interlocking, nestling
Yep.
sections that will slide inside each other and allow the pieces to be raised up, not by cranes, but by engaging the sweat and spirit of 500 people on capstans. This is a capstan, arrayed around Cathedral Square. If you think I'm crazy, I think you all have a copy of the report that I did. There's an engraving, 1583 in Rome, where they had nearly 1,500 people on capstans raising the obelisk in St. Peter's Square. Now, I've visited there and talked to some of the families that lived around there, and they still brag that their family was involved with raising the obelisk. This is a part of the story that you can tell your great-great-great-grandchildren. The idea being to prefabricate, I'm getting away from the microphone too far, to prefabricate the various sections, and I'll tear it apart in a little bit, and assemble them inside so it looks about like this. Now I've taken off the bell section just for clarity. It looks about like this on the day of the raising, 8 o'clock in the morning. 8 o'clock in the morning, your trained capstan crews gather, and I would guess about 50,000 spectators in Cathedral Square. And they start in on the capstans. Now you'll notice that it's a lot of mechanical advantage here, but it really does rise right up. Now, I will tell you that this model isn't perfect. It's gonna fetch up right about there, and it just needs to be a little jiggle. And another little jiggle. I won't do that in the real McCoy. We'll have shoes. Yeah, come on, you. Do you have any idea how far this thing has traveled and how many times it's been dropped by baggage handlers?
Hey.
All right, so there she goes. All right? And you can see that one section doesn't sit on top of the other, they nestle. It's like two men grabbing each other's forearms so they won't let go. Now we're up to here. We set these in place. This forms the level where the bells go. One, and there's another one here somewhere. Slide this one in here just for temporary. And then, there she is. It's about 2 hours later. Figure by 10 o'clock, she looked like this, except of course, this bell level will be up there. And I'm figuring, if we start the hanging at 5, by the time we get the bells up, and the fittings and the floors in place, ready for the bell ringers. By the time we open the hangi, we can have the bells going. And we have the best dam party in Christchurch since the end of the Second World War. So, Leanne, can we dig up a hole in Cathedral Square?
That's a resource consent even I couldn't.
So, this is a story for our grandchildren, great-grandchildren. This is not a building project. This is using this building project as a pretext to heal the people. A time to heal. All right? Now, I figure if we got to go ahead in the next couple of months, we could be doing this on the anniversary of the quake in 2 years. The stonemasons here in Christchurch are, I don't know if you know this, but you have some of the best stonemasons in the world, right here in Canterbury.
No.
And the stonemasons I interview around the world say, oh, you don't need our help. You know, talk to the masons in Canterbury. They figured this was an off-the-cuff estimate from 5 years ago, about a year and about 2 million New Zealand. All right, about 1.5 million New Zealand is what the Timber Framers Guild has estimated would cost to field our side of it and make this happen. So add some padding, add some, oh my God, we forgot about that. Call it 5 million. They budgeted 10 million for this. So part of the gift that we're giving, many gifts, one spirit, is we can help bridge that gap between where we're at and where we want to be with this big, terrible debate that's going on in the paper at the moment. So I'm not here to take sides. I'm here to lend a shoulder to Christchurch like I lent the shoulder to my Amish friends. What parts have I missed, Andy? I've done this sermon 1,000 times, and I think I've forgotten some. I'm trying to cut it down nice and short, but I think you get the gist of it.
What's worth knowing is Andy and I presented on Marcus's behalf to the Cathedral Working Group, and they've really engaged with this, and it's included in their report to government. So it's actually within the proposition right now. But we see it as being a way of igniting the community to be enthused about the recovery, which isn't just about the cathedral, but something in the heart of the city.
And if we pull this off, we can't do this without help from a lot of people. And the people in this room around this table are some of the ones that I'm going to really count on, because we're going to need a lot of cooperation. We're going to need, just all that kind of planning and access and everybody pulling together. And if you have a complaint, speak up loud and strong, all right? Or if you have a worry, speak up even sooner.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, we haven't got time for a debate and a discussion.
But I have got time for questions.
Or even questions. We don't.
Okay.
But it was an opportunity, in my view, for a very public presentation, because you could have come and made this presentation at an informal, workshop or a meeting, but actually by coming here now, you've live streamed, you've got people listening, and it will start a conversation. And I've never seen the likes of it. It captured my imagination. I think it's going to capture the imagination of a lot of people.
I hope so, and I hope it helps drive the fundraising. Parenthetically, we're going to be doing a steeple raising like this in Pennsylvania on the 4th of July, our Independence Day. If folks want to come to Pennsylvania and help with the steeple raising, I could make arrangements. We could live stream it.
Well, you must. I mean, it would go viral, wouldn't it? I mean, it would be amazing.
Leanne, if we did this, it would be just 6 years ago, the lead news story on news broadcasts around the world was Christchurch has fallen.
Yeah.
If we pull this off, the lead news story on every news broadcast around the world will be Christchurch is back and with a vengeance.
Yeah.
And contrary to my young friend's surmise, this is not an advocation for a space program for New Zealand, all right?
Look, thank you very much, Marcus, and
Thank you, Leanne.
thank you, Mark and Andy. I really appreciate you coming in. I'm sorry we can't engage
That's
more,
fine.
but it's been a fantastic presentation.
Thank you. Now we'll get out of your hair.
Okay, thank you. Well, now we have to move to deputations by appointment, and we have Generation Zero regarding item number 10, provision of electricity, and if I could invite the two representatives to the table, and if you could introduce yourselves to us and make your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Pubudu Senanayaka. I'm a physicist by training and just here representing Generation Zero.
And I'm Luke Swartzfigger, a PhD student at the University of Canterbury, part of the Epicentre, the research centre there, investigating New Zealand's electricity system transitioning towards 90% or more renewables, and specifically looking at whether or not we'll have security of supply under those conditions.
And we're here to present on the procurement plans for the electricity going forward for Christchurch City Council. So just a brief introduction about our group. I'm sure most of you have heard of us, but Generation Zero is basically a nationwide youth-led advocacy group with the vision to see New Zealand achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. And so as the Council is probably well aware, climate change is a major problem facing humanity at present. The primary driver of climate change is the emission of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere through human activity. The predominant concern in this is the release of carbon dioxide through the burning of fossil fuels. It is paramount for our collective future that we act boldly and quickly on reducing greenhouse gas emissions. In this effort, I think our civic institutions must be the leaders and act ethically and courageously to set an example and guide our society onto a better path for our future. So, with the choice of electricity suppliers to be decided, Christchurch City Council has the opportunity to reinforce its leadership role by explicitly stating that it will only acquire electricity from guaranteed renewable carbon neutral sources. So what's the big deal about renewable energy? Well, renewable energy gives us a massive opportunity to drastically reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. This becomes especially vital as the transport fleets transition to electric vehicles, because this combination of solutions has the potential to reduce New Zealand's carbon dioxide emissions basically to net zero, give or take. But this can only happen if renewable sources are maintained and further developed to meet the growing demand. And for that to happen, these generators must be actively encouraged, and support through procurement contracts is a significant way of achieving this, in our opinion. Now, while the council staff have indicated that Christchurch City Council is likely to be mostly getting their electricity from renewables, without an explicit guarantee and procurement from such guaranteed sources, this simply amounts to a lucky convenience rather than an active decision to do the right thing. And this does not amount to a positive signal of support for renewables, and such a decision does not send the required signals to renewable generators that the CCC are actively supporting the renewable sector. And as such, this does not build confidence for investment in greater renewable generation. Additionally, by not guaranteeing that the supply is from fully renewable sources, Christchurch City Council is funding generators that ultimately use fossil fuels. Regardless of whether your electricity generated is from fossil fuels, your business will help these generators, and at the expense of truly renewable sources. It is not consistent to claim that CCC wishes to reduce carbon pollution while funding providers that use fossil fuels for generation. The Council's internal energy analysts also make some confusing remarks in their analysis. They state that 17% of the power fed into the grid will be non-renewables, and that there is, and I quote, no filter which allows green-only electrons through to power your needs. Now, I'm confused because is this meant to indicate that, contrary to staff claims, up to 17% of Council's power will be from non-renewables? Because if that's the case, there's some miscommunication that must be cleared up before proceeding. If not, I question what the relevance of that statement is to the decision at hand. A suggestion is made in this analysis, without much evidence that I can see, that the procurement from a certified carbon neutral provider would be more expensive than the MBIE-led all-of-government procurement process. However, it is unclear how this conclusion was reached, and we implore Council staff to undertake deeper research into the carbon neutral providers and present a comparative cost estimate. However, we do recognize that there is massive value in the MBAOG process and that there is a significant associated reduction of risk for the council by engaging in this process. Given that the staff estimate 5 to 6 months to survey the market and secure a supplier under direct engagement with the market, we propose a new option to the two that you are presented with. So what we suggest is that you engage in the AOG procurement process for an 18-month contract with the explicit condition that carbon neutral providers are thoroughly researched and comparative cost estimates obtained from the providers themselves, with the aim of switching to one of these providers at the end of the 18-month term. This will reduce the risk of direct market exposure, which is a significant risk, while the providers are being researched and a plan drawn up to switch to a carbon neutral provider. If this option is not tenable, we request that the council take option 2 and directly engage the market and only accept supply of power from guaranteed carbon neutral providers. And I have to reiterate this is not just about the carbon footprint of the City Council. It is also about who we choose to support with a supply contract. Do we support renewables, or do we support, albeit indirectly, fossil fuel generators? Do we make the decision that helps our future, and do we do the right thing? Now, I have to acknowledge that the Christchurch City Council is a leader in fighting climate change and our emissions. You guys promote electric vehicles, you promote alternative transport models, and you stood up when the oil drilling block offers came around, and you do the right thing, by and large. So I encourage the councillors to stand up once again and make the ethical and courageous decision. Show the other government agencies, all 110 of them, the way forward. It's up to local government, now more than ever, to take responsibility on an initiative on climate change. Thank you very much, and any questions I have to take?
Thank you. Councillors, questions? Aaron.
So just looking at, because I have a question around the spot market versus the fixed price. Is it cheaper to get electricity off the spot market than buying into a fixed price over there from what you think, which then also gives us the opportunity to buy off preferred suppliers or not?
So the price of generation on the spot market is quite dependent on hydro conditions. If we have a dry year, we have less hydro storage, therefore we have to use more thermal fuel costs. So it is so currently we're in quite a wet season at the moment. Pukaki is currently spilling, which means it's overflowing. So that's where the risk is. So it's difficult to really say, is it going to be cheaper on the spot market?
Yeah, because even looking at the previous year, it would have been cheaper in the spot market than in a fixed.
Yep.
But of course it has risks if you get, and of course the worst risk is a big disaster somewhere, a massive cable goes down or something, the price will change dramatically.
So if you look at since the spanning of the wholesale market since 1996, there's been 2001, 2003, 2008, and I think 2011 have been dry years, so 4 years out of 20, and that's very like back of the envelope type calculation, but the risk, so it is difficult to really say. It's part of the risk of the decision is council willing to take that risk being exposed to the spot market price based on those conditions. Currently, the hydro conditions look favourable, but it's quite hard to tell with the limited data that we currently have.
And then my next question is around the carbon tax on electricity seems to be a blanket flat one on all the companies. You just pay per kilowatt or whatever. That seems detrimental to heading towards being carbon neutral, because shouldn't you just put the tax on the ones that make electricity using carbon, and if someone's using hydro, then it shouldn't be applied? So isn't that where the real fault's at here?
I think the carbon price was charged to the thermal fuel, not to the electricity in
Okay, so
general.
that's contrary to what we've been told when we asked that question, that it's a blanket like per kilowatt amount, like you'd normally throw on a fuel tax.
Was it Energy Link or another?
Not sure, but I thought you guys might know because it's your bag.
Yeah, so from our understanding, it is charged by the fuel that's used rather than as a blanket. So that might be needs clarification. And just to reiterate again, that's a central government issue as well. And what we're saying here is that councils and local government can send economic signals by saying we are willing to take some risk to encourage renewables. And I also encourage you guys to explore the options that it's not necessarily that you have to engage the spot market directly as well. There are providers that will give you a guaranteed term on a contract as well. So that's something you'd have to look at. Yeah.
Any other questions for Generation Zero? Tim?
Being a large organisation as we are, we must have a guarantee of supply, and we must have an idea, setting budgets, annual plans, long-term plans, about what we're looking at. I mean, I would be concerned if we were vulnerable to a spot market, that the baseline spot price for spot market, if large organisations like this started to invest into the spot market rather than a firm price over a period of time, that we would be then vulnerable to the baseline spot price going up, like petrol, etc., where you can't really kind of govern what's happening there. And so, you know, you've got to understand, I think, that we have to give to our ratepayers a sense of firm reliability, but also to our staff, etc., that we need to know the budgets over a period of time. Because if, for instance, with climate change and we had a number of dry years and the spot price goes up, we are then vulnerable, which affects the ratepayers of Christchurch. So,
yeah, right. So I completely agree with that, and that's why we. That's right. that's why we proposed this kind of hybrid option, where we go with the AOG procurement process, which gives us a guarantee for 18 months, and in that 18 months we can research, because I think the problem is that the research hasn't been deep enough to actually say, can we get a carbon neutral guarantee for a fixed term, right? That hasn't happened. There's no evidence of that, and without that you can't make the claim that we're entering the spot market and there's a risk. So if we actually look at that and say, okay, we're going with the MB process, we have a guaranteed supply for 18 months, that gives us time to actually act on and do the research required to see if we can find suppliers that will provide a firm baseline as you request. So that's why we propose a hybrid option rather than the directly engage with market straight away, because I think that is a risk.
I think we've gone over the 10 minutes, but look, thank you very much. And I mean, we're going to go straight on to item 10. So we're going to replace you with the officials that are advising us on item 10. And if you'd like to stay, then obviously you can hear the debate about the item that you've presented on. So thank you very much, and thank you for caring. It's much appreciated.
No worries. Thank you very much, guys.
Cheers.